all the core markets in Asia are still functioning quite well. That is, of course, not to say that we don't expect any kind of turbulence. If things continue as bad as they've been now or get worse, we will certainly see some areas of vulnerability. And here I would like to point out in particular the debt buildup. As I said, Asia's share of global debt has increased a lot since before the financial crisis, the 2008 financial crisis. It built up during that time and then again during COVID. But it's not just public debt, it's also private and household debt. And so that's an area in particular I think we need to continue watching.
The global economy is going to slow down next year. And Korea is highly integrated. It's a very successful economy and it's highly integrated. So it cannot, live in a different world. It lives in this world. So we are expecting a deceleration of growth in Korea next year, but not a recession. Obviously, there is high uncertainty. And the global economy may do worse next year. And, Korea growth will be affected.
I think that there are risks to Asia both on inflation and on growth. So even though the situation is relatively better now compared to some of the other parts of the world, there is a risk that growth will slow down. There is a risk that inflation will be higher than we have been projecting.
The Bank of Korea has acted early and has contained inflation. Puts Korea in a very strong position for the next year because it is not facing the challenges that other economies are facing of containing inflation. We think inflation is going to peak this month or next month. We are already starting to see inflation coming down, by the way. When you look at inflation now, it's already coming down. Maybe it will take a little bit longer to be felt and people to feel that it's coming down. We are expecting commodity prices to stabilize or come down. I think that should help, and the increase in interest rates will start helping disinflate. The impact of the higher energy prices translated in higher cost of imports. So this is the main driver. But the strength and the competitiveness of the Korean economy means that we are still forecasting a current account surplus. We think that even when energy prices are higher and the trade balance may be lower this year, still Korea will have a current account surplus. That's very important. And Korea has ample foreign reserves.
In China particularly, there are three things that we're very carefully watching. One has been this whole COVID lockdowns. If there are continued lockdowns, if there are continued disruptions, that will both dampen Chinese demand for products from other parts of Asia, but it will also lead to supply disruptions. There's been a lot of issues on the real estate market. There's a lot of housing that's been constructed that is now encountering difficulties. The housing firms are encountering difficulties, and also there's the financial knock-on effects, which what the Chinese need to look at and be very careful is to make sure that the real estate problems don't spill over into a larger, broad financial sector set of issues. Even if the short-term impact is not that large, it's there, but even if it's not that large, the long-term impact can be quite a bit. So a 1 percentage point reduction in Chinese growth, for example, will lead to a 0.3 impact for the rest of the region. I think that should first bear the burden, and primarily monetary policy, which is the first one, and fiscal policy has a very important but supportive role to play. Fiscal policy, you need to continue to have restraint, and particularly in countries with high debt, they need to be very mindful. Now, having said that, it is very important to protect the vulnerable, and so we will need, and we should need to have fiscal support provided to the poorest people.
I think it's critical to ensure that inflation comes down, and I think Korea is on that path. So I think that's a critical contribution to improving how inflation feels and the cost of living. The authorities have very valuable plans to adapt the economy to the challenges of aging and the challenges of the digital economy, making sure that people can integrate and have the skill set to participate in the labor market for that new economy. They should continue even during periods of turmoil, because we shouldn't forget about the medium term. We shouldn't only look at the short term. And I think the fact that the authorities have these plans, these reform plans to prepare the economy for the future, is very important.
We're also seeing more issues where we worry, looking ahead, that political considerations may override the economic considerations that have benefited countries in terms of getting closer trade integration. So these are, when you have uncertainty, also then what happens is investment doesn't take place. So again, for countries like Korea, for countries like middle-income countries in general, with what you call middle powers, I think this is something that you want to watch out for very carefully. And I think this is another area where I think middle powers can play a very big role in trying to bring the globe together.